Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Redspin Sports. It's been a hot minute since we've had a live stream, so it's good to be on here. Lots of things going on. Nate had some travel. We're looking at some things with content. Like I said, we're in the show notes. We're looking at ways to just better the content and bring it to you at a more consistent pace. And we might be dialing back on these live streams to like the live streams once a month, but then 3 to 4 solid episodes that come out that aren't live. You can still find those here on YouTube as well as everywhere else. So just filling people in, letting people know. Nate, what's been going on, man? How was Florida? You went there again, right? We're waiting on Nate. Can't hear you. It says you're muted. I can't unmute you either. It's like just showing muted. Nope, can't hear you. I swear all this was working right before we hit live too. It's saying that your mic is not connected for some reason. It's like literally showing that on my end.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Boom.
All right. What's up? So, no, we're.
Yep, I got you. Can you
say something, Justin?
Yeah. No, I'm talking. Can you hear me?
What happened to my sound?
Yeah, we can hear you now. We can hear you. You just can't hear me. He'll be back. He'll be back. Oh, man. There we go.
No, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Now I can. Yeah, you went out. And then
awesome.
This thing's just like temperamental. It's plugged in. I guess it's just like it just, I don't know. It wasn't unplugged. It just kind of like pushed out. So I think it's all right now. Cool. What's up?
Awesome.
Jagoff, how you doing? Lovely. So anyways, welcome. Yeah, so a lot going on. I mean, I was last weekend in DC, got to like yell at some right-wing Peruvians outside. Well, Pedro Castillo coming in. Got to, I don't know if some people follow me on social media, got to run into some people that, I don't know, like Max Blumenthal, who I was there with, thinks that this was the Jan 6 reunion, like kind of rally, which not really a rally. There were like 5 times at least as many cops as anybody else. You had a guy sitting there like talking about why people are like, oh man, why don't you have a girlfriend then? About how he's talking about, how, the worst thing in the world are weak men, and the thing we need the most of are loyal, honest women that want to support their man. And then he's like, well, then they're like, well, he's all roided up. He just does roids for fun. Like you eat breakfast, most people, he just takes roids. Like, not because he wants to be a better athlete or anything. He just takes roids. Like, and, but he's like, well, I'm single, so I want to swing my dingling around. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That might just be
that dude was classy.
Classy is a good way to put it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, you have that for sure. We got.
How was Florida, man? You had another Florida trip in there?
Yeah, I did. It was good. I mean, my granddad passed away down there, but other than that, we got a lot done. So let's get into it, though, man. Why don't you go ahead and start your what's on your mind here, and then I'll kind of go from there.
Yeah, a couple big things in the last few weeks. The further policing of NFL ownership over black bodies with the taunting penalties that have just absolutely plagued over these first 2 weeks. I know my Seattle Seahawks had a couple. I mean, DJ Reed got one for looking at some. I mean, like it was eye contact. His arms didn't move and he wasn't saying anything. He just looked at a dude wrong.
Justin, how about there's like there's video of Bill Belichick talking about like, you got to get in the mind of your opponent. Like it's all about like,
Yeah.
it's like, that shows like but now he's saying toeing the line that it's disrespectful. I view this as, like I said, on By Any Means Necessary today, really the empire striking back in a lot of ways. They've seen all this player activism the last few years and like this, like the whole player empowerment stuff. And I think that that's really what they're trying to push back on, the idea of who has control over that, what goes on in that field, and really the production of that spectacle. I don't know. I wonder what your thoughts are there, man.
Yeah, I mean, all of this comes down from the competition committee, and the competition committee is headed by John Mara, however you say his name. He's a terrible person. But anyway, he took over the Giants through a death. Team passed to him. And, this is the same guy that when he took over the Giants, he fired everybody in the front office, like all of them. He fired the vendors. He fired absolutely everybody. And it was all to make it his team. It was like this shit that he was on where it's like, it's that power of like, it's my team now and I have to make it mine by clearing out.
Who's his dad? Who's his father? I mean, one of the oldest blue bloods of blue bloods, Wellington Mara. Yeah. So he comes from he is the vanguard of the NFL, man. It's like this guy's not like nouveau riche at all. He co-owns the team with the Tisch family. That's another aristocratic New York type family. So it's really kind of par for the course with them. Yeah.
Here's his quote. So before this rule came into play, like before like the enforcement and the subtle changes that they made this year to be able to have this level of enforcement, here's a wonderful John Mara quote. It's just a question of whether you can have rules that can be enforced and without taking the fun out of the game too. But nobody wants to see a player taunting another player. I know I certainly don't. Now that I know I certainly don't does all the lifting for you in that sentence. Like that is because he doesn't like to see it.
He doesn't like to see it. Right.
Yep. And then he goes on to say, I think the rest of the members of the competition committee feel the same way too. And again, who is the competition committee? Who sits on this?
You have one guy from the NFLPA Players Union, right? So, and 10 guys handpicked by Roger Goodell. So there you go.
Yes. I mean, yeah. So, but again, it just comes down to bosses trying to police how you act at work, right? It's not enough that like you go out and do the job that they're paying you to do, but like you have to quote unquote act right while you do it. So yeah, it's been unreal. It's great to see all the player coaches, everything. There is backlash, will it be enough to like do anything? I don't know, but like, it is good to see the backlash. I mean, there's a lot of coaches that are like, cause everyone's been penalized on this. It's not like there's a team out there that's just all quote unquote well-behaved that's not being affected by this. All the coaches have felt this and they all, against it in the ways of, it's wild. Like I said, and it's subjective in its writing. So that means you have officials that are subjectively calling this, as it happens. Again, like I said, so you have a player like DJ Reed who his mouth doesn't move, his arms. He's not doing any of this. He's not doing that. He does nothing with his arms. And it's just a look he gave a receiver and they threw a flag. So they're making these calls in a split second on whether or not, like following these rules that someone like John Mara set, it's absolute horseshit. But once again, this is your boss telling you it's not enough to come to work and do your job. I need to police the way you act when you're here.
But come on, Justin. These guys like make millions of dollars. All right.
Yeah.
Like why can't they just like, be grateful, right? And you and I, the fan, we're paying their salaries, right? These are the kind of things we get. So
and there's a lot of fans that back it because as we've talked about so many times on this, how many fans out there that don't have the ability, never could get there, but like to project themselves onto these people and then pretend that they would then be some upstanding like version, because they're sitting there on their couch going, oh, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. And that's the fans who support this kind of shit. Just projecting themselves onto these athletes that are unbelievably talented and skilled at what they do. And just projecting that from their couch.
So let's check a look. This is a little compilation of some of this, and so people get an idea here.
After the play, unsportsmanlike conduct. Number 88, spinning the ball in the opponent's fence. That's number 88, first punt.
In the opponent's fence?
Spinning the ball. Oh, no. Get him out of there. That was weak.
Putting up 14 points.
They should have ejected him, you know?
Here's a 2nd and 10. And again, going underneath. Allen able to hop over one defender and pick up the first. Right over.
Get him out of there. Get him out. Get him out.
Both these quarterbacks, I mean,
Automatic. First down. That's number 2's first down in the category of unsportsmanlike conduct.
That was his first of the day.
Category.
Yeah, the second one's the one where he didn't do anything.
He got him for chirping at the end here.
Automatic. First down.
yeah, right there. So anytime you do that,
The NFL, one of the points of
Unabated. Nope, get him out of there.
first down. Blitz coming. Ryan knocked way in the air, and that's going to be intercepted, and that's going to be returned for a
Don't
touchdown by
celebrate.
Edwards again.
Don't celebrate.
2 interception touchdowns from Mike Edwards.
Yeah, too
You know,
much.
and they made all those rules of, we're going to allow a celebration, we're going to allow celebration, and then it goes to this.
Right. Well, that was before we entered an era of player empowerment, right? This was, I think, when they started allowing some of this stuff, it was about 10 years ago, maybe, give or take. And then this is pre Kaepernick. I mean, they've been shook by that stuff, and then watching what's happened in the NBA, they really are committed to making sure that at all costs they don't end up with any kind of situation where, even though I think a lot of it's farcical, the idea that the NBA owners are so much woke juxtaposed with NFL owners, but they are, I guess, when you juxtapose them with NFL owners, right? So there you go. And that's what the Jerry Joneses of the world, who's the dean of these guys, is going to, stand up and pound the table for. I mean, and of course, John Mara is right there, ready to go along. And, even coaches like Belichick, I think, have been influenced by the culture at large with this. I mean, look, I also don't, people say guys like Barry Sanders, just hand the ball. I mean, look, I get that too. I mean, there's some dudes that just aren't about that. They want to score and just go get on to the next thing. But the notion that you got to pit what Barry Sanders does is make him out to be the good, in contrast to the bad, the childish, the selfish athlete, the entitled athlete. I'll never forget, man. We got to find this clip. There was an old NFL film. So I want to move on because we got some other stuff to get to. It's there's bigger issues in the world about some old NFL player and he was all bitter. And this is in the late 90s. I was a kid, and I remember it's old white case. You couldn't pick me up in a limousine, take me to sit in the 50-yard line with the best seats in the house or in a box seat to watch these clowns, these disrespectful clowns that go around and it's all about me and whatnot, and I don't want to watch any of this garbage.
Yeah,
and I'm like, dude, just the racism's oozing out of the guy. So that's the reality in this country, and it's not even that surprising. So I don't know. Anyways, I wanted to keep it moving here a little bit because there's a lot going on right now in the world of sport. I mean, I don't know if you followed. Just go ahead for the listeners. What do you think of what's your take on Joe Buck and Troy Aikman and the way that those guys, the way they announce games, sort of it really helps. How they sort of are the paragons of upholding the shield, right? Representing the shield and really kind of framing in any sort of controversy, anything that's there for the NFL. They are the erasers, kind of. They're the ones that kind of get up there for the NFL, keep the focus just on the game, kind of tell some, kind of cheesy old school, down home anecdotes. So, well, what's your sort of take on Joe Buck? We know his father, Jack Buck, the great St. Louis Cardinals announcer. But yeah, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. How have you always kind of seen those guys that do it?
They're like you said, man. They're the arbiters of disseminating information to people who don't follow the shit every day, right? If you're not if you're just a casual football fan that turns football on Sundays and you catch Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, and there's a player sitting out like Deshaun Watson, who's not being played, and you tune into just their broadcast, you're not going to know why he's sitting. They're going to completely whitewash that for the NFL. They're not doing this for the players' sake. They do this for, like you said, the sake of the shield, the sake of they will water down any issue to, they use the buzzwords all the time. It's off field or disciplinary. They will never talk about the what, the why, you'd have to be someone who at least follows on the level of tuning into SportsCenter every day, obviously the Deshaun Watson story is a little different, because it's bigger, it's been around longer. I think most people know, but at the same time, if you had no idea what's going on with him and you tuned into that broadcast, you still would have no idea what's going on. You just know off the field issues. You'd have to look it up yourself.
That's actually, we turned the TV off a little too soon, man, because
that's all they did in the early onset. They did not. So they went beyond.
Oh yeah, man. So anyways, he went in hard on and said, quote, "And here comes Davis Mills, who, unlike Deshaun Watson, is not accused of sexually assaulting over 20 women." Troy Aikman,
wow.
You're right,
okay,
Joe. I really respect this kid's ability not to sexually assault women. Whoa. Troy Aikman, it's is he brain dead? Oh, you're right, Joe.
Wow.
I really respect
such a departure.
his ability to not sexually assault women. Let's see. You got Deshaun Watson right now, and he hears Joe Buck. Shout out to Joe Buck and Troy Aikman for speaking on Deshaun Watson, not pretending it's not weird as hell for a top 5 QB in the world to be sitting, not acknowledging it does way more harm than good. That's not part of the story, but anyways. Yeah. But yeah, you got the NFL, of course, is copyright claimed this, so lovely. But let's see here. Let's see if we can pull this up. Actually, I do kind of want to hear this now because it's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, that's a departure for them. Usually, like I said, they absolutely flatten everything.
Just play quarter. Sam Darnold.
Never mind. That's going to be – I thought they had the clip ISO,
yeah.
So forget that. But, yeah, interesting stuff. Let's keep it moving, though, man. We had a I'm going to get to some stuff with the culture and how we have the music that we have now still with for 20 years, really since 9/11's been absurdly jingoistic, and how we can really trace it back to people like Daryl Worley. Have you forgotten, how you felt that day when we wanted to blow up every Muslim? Right? That's pretty much what he's saying, right? Yeah. And then it's that whole song was all about selling the Iraq War. Really, it's have you forgotten? Why do you not want to go for bomb Iraq and take it over? Right? Have you forgotten what what Saddam Hussein did to us that day? Right? Along with Bin Laden, right? So I'm only being facetious, of course. But before we do that, though, I did want to bring up the issue of deaths in football, though, because it is what's going on. Let's pull this article up here, and I want to read a few passages from it. But man, this is really wild because it's these have been going on, but the numbers really kind of hit you. And this is the first one. This is just the most recent, September 21st. New York high school football player dies after a head injury. I'll read from the AP article. High school football players died after sustaining a head injury during a weekend game. 14-year-old's father said on social media, "We all prayed for a miracle to happen, for you to be saved. Sadly, the damage was just too much." Jason Crispin wrote on a Facebook post Tuesday. Tyler Crispin, a freshman at Carthage High School in northern New York, was injured during a JV game against West Genesee High School on Saturday. In a display of support Monday, students and family, many wearing the school's color red, gathered at a local park for a rally illuminated by lights from first responders' vehicles, blah, blah, blah. It goes on. And, go back to the practice. It brought up here that Tyler is at least the second high school football player to die of a head injury in recent months. Dale Martin, 18, sustained a fatal brain injury during an April 1st game in Colville, Washington. I assume that was probably making up the fall season that was maybe not played in 2020. At least 2 other players have died after falling ill while practicing. Ivan Hicks, 16, collapsed on the field during warm-ups at West Catholic Prep in Philly in July. And then in August, 17-year-old Jack Al-Khatib died at a hospital shortly after practice, collapsing during a practice at Dutch Fork High School in Irmo, South Carolina, just outside Columbia. So the National Center for Catastrophic Sport Injury Research at the University of North Carolina has tracked a total of 14 middle school and high school football deaths in 2019. So let me get out of that real quick and go to the next one here, because there's one other piece that's got some stats and stuff here that are really worthy of sharing and discussing here. This is an SB Nation piece from 2020. I'm going to pull up next, and I talked about this today on my Redspin report on By Any Means Necessary, and this one really goes into some depth here about overall about this young guy you see in the picture here from Greenville, Mississippi, and him dying on making a tackle in a game in 2018. But it kind of brings in the larger context of this right here. And I want to go down to a few of these passages here. Let's get this, go down and down. So that was 2018. It brings up the 15-year-old offensive lineman from Houston that died in 2018. But let's get to, all right. And it really
go ahead.
What this article's done, it's really highlight from 2000 to 2020 or through 2019. There's the insane number of people that have died over the years. I mean, I think back to in 2003. I know in my hometown of Jacksonville there was a death in Anthony Hilton, and that really kind of shook people. And the reality is, people are going to draw the conclusions they want, but the NFL and football at every level now is trying to put the blame really on players and his targeting calls, and making it seem it's just an individual bad tackling technique and all. And that certainly can play a role, but the thing that really gets me though is that you just have to look at the back of your helmet. Everyone who's played ball can look at the back of your helmet and says, you play this game, there's a severe injury, paralysis, and death can be a consequence. And the reality is that's what it is. I mean, there's huge risk if you play hockey, if you play any kind of combat sport. I mean, especially even look at baseball, the Blue Jays and Rays, and the whole culture of retaliation, and the way of using throwing at the head as a way of trying to enforce kind of code. I mean, it gets at a larger violence within our culture, man. It's just pervasive, and it's just so omnipresent that it doesn't even seem odd anymore, right? So the issue of I have I love the game, right? I mean, I can't, but I also understand that if a contradictory relationship to it. I mean, given my own situation, the history, having had the injuries I've sustained, and the things that's done to my own life. But at the end of the day, it's I don't know, Justin. Let me hear your take real quick, and I'll kind of respond.
I mean, we've definitely talked about this a lot, and that violence goes all the way back to we don't have America without violence. We don't have imperialism without violence. We don't have any of the things without violence. I mean, it's so interwoven into our culture. And then you take that individualistic side, of how we push individualism, and it is unreal that we'll always find a way to, and I don't mean you and I mean, they will, from the NFL all the way down to these peewee football leagues, they'll always find a way to say that it's all just in form and execution. It's all just in form and execution, when again, most your average NFL fan likes it because it's violent, and they know it's violent, and that's what they want. And the people who play know it's violent. No one's going into this going, this is not what it is, except for the people who make the money off of it. They're the ones who draw that line of no, this can be solved through X, Y, and Z.
Well, they don't really believe it. It's just that they're having to realize that they got to maintain that facade just to make sure that they have, catastrophic injury coverage and insurance companies that are willing to actually provide that coverage. I mean, there's a lot of fear amongst people within the game that it's going to get to a point where the liability coverage is going to be so insane that insurance companies simply are going to say we're not going to cover this anymore. And that's sort of where that whole kind of like public pose comes from in terms of like talking about player safety. I just want to read this stat here that's just really jarring. According to the National Center for Catastrophic Sport Injury Research, 218 middle school and high school boys died from football from 2000 in 2018, an average of 11 deaths per year. 150 boys suffered indirect deaths from cardiac arrest, blood clots, heat stroke, or similar causes. 60 of the deaths were direct, like Williams, the boy they cite in the article here. Most of these 68 boys died after sustaining blows to the head and neck. So, I mean, there you have it. I mean, unless you're Merrill Hodge, who likes to argue that all these stats are just cooked up by the likes of people like Nathan Coleman Lamb at Duke and people that hate football and shit.
Yeah.
Kind of like make stuff up to take the game down. He essentially, especially has said that stuff about the researchers at Boston University who's covered CTE. He's like, oh, you can't, because the thing with CTE, you can't really diagnose it until someone's dead, right? So, and they're
getting closer. They keep getting closer to being able to diagnose it in living folks accurately. And I've always said, like, that's going to be that right there. Like, if that comes to fruition, that's going to be a big day for, like, what do you do when they can find evidence of it when you're still alive? And how young do we think that, like, you'll find evidence in people? And like, that's like, I am curious to see what happens when that comes, right? Like, that is the sort of thing that could be that next huge tipping point. But we're not there yet. Like you said, right now, we don't know until afterwards.
All right. Yeah. So anyways, absolutely. Let me just read a couple of passages from here because I think it really hits to this. So this is the Mississippi Delta. This SB Nation article, highly recommended. Let me put this actually in the chat because I really want people to read this. It's a jarring piece. And it's pretty extensive and comprehensive, actually, in terms of like the scope of what it covers. But there are a few little excerpts I do want to share here. And I'll start with the beginning just so you get the context. Last time she spoke to her son, LaShawna Williams was sitting alone in the bleachers of Greenville High School's football stadium near midfield and a few rows up from the team bench. And let me just interject it. Like, this area of Mississippi, the Delta, this was like the area where the most millionaires were concentrated in the U.S. in the antebellum at the time leading up to the Civil War. This is like the belt buckle of like King Cotton, all right, so to speak. So it's the racialized dynamics here cannot be overstated. I mean, like, I've driven through here many times, especially as a kid, going to Arkansas to visit family, and you just drive for miles, and you just see cotton, what they call in the area white gold, everywhere you can look. So that's sort of like the geographical backdrop there of what's going on. And this is like a area that's 70 to 80% black population. All right. So the school band banging drums and also poverty is just insanely concentrated here, and it's really just it's a travesty, really. I mean, like, this still exists, that Reconstruction was betrayed the way it was, and that like we see this just visible symbol of history's effects like existing in the present, the Mississippi Delta.
Yeah, it's wild. I just want to throw this out there, this little experience that I had in this very same area of the country when I was freshman in college and drove down to Gulf Shores, Alabama, and then drove through Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas, all kind of like a back road, just like wanting to like see those states. It's when we talk about like the photos, the satellite photos of what we're doing, of what they're doing to the Uyghurs, things like that. And you're just like, oh, yeah, that's a prison. And they're like, yeah, it doesn't look like a prison. Drive through Alabama and Mississippi and see prison fence like you're used to seeing, but then see a double wide trailer that's the warden's like and guard shack. Like that. These aren't like, this isn't like when you drive through like Terre Haute, in Indiana, like a maximum security prison. these are camps. I mean, they're literal
Right.
prison camps. I mean, this is I've never seen shit like that. I saw, and in that same area where I saw 2 different prisons that were like that. I mean, we're talking there shacks and fences.
Right.
Then in that same area, this is the only time I've ever seen this in my life. I just saw a train that was completely abandoned, hadn't moved in years, and they just disconnected it wherever it crossed a road and like pushed the 2 apart. Like, you just left a train. Like that at some point when that thing's, like, you think about like the material causes that led to that happening.
Yeah, man.
And then the locals disconnecting it and just moving it off their road. Like, so they could at least cross over. But like, I mean, sorry. I just want to throw that out there. Like, if you've never been, I mean, you will not be prepared for the levels of poverty and the shit you will see, that you're not sold, you're never told about, you're never.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So I'll pick up here with this. Like, so we talked about LaShawna Williams' mother goes on the school band, banging drums and cymbals, and decked out in Hornet black and gold, had just marched from the parking lot. The scent of barbecue and tamales swirled from under the stands into the night air. Usually a contingent of family, siblings, and god sister, godmothers went to the games with Williams to watch Jeremiah, all right, the player who passed on November 2nd, 2018. But not on November 2nd, 2018. An afternoon cold front had plunged the temperature to 50 degrees at the time. The 7 p.m. kickoff, unseasonably cool for the Mississippi Delta. Greenville, which had lost every game since the season opener in August, was playing its last regular season game against Madison Central, which is a perennial power from the Jackson, Mississippi suburbs, headed to the state playoffs. So it goes on to say, despite the challenge, Jeremiah Williams is more optimistic about the outcome. And I'll skip over some of this here, but talks about his friend who he dated and grew up with, was this girl Jakaya, and just sort of how they were feeling that day and their relationship and the kind of movies they watched together and whatnot. But it goes, Jeremiah had beaming brown eyes and a buzz cut, and his face often expressed a warm, knowing smile. Despite standing no taller than 5'8" and weighing perhaps 165, he had blossomed into Greenville's star player. I'll skip a little bit more, and it gets to this. This is really the part that hits you. But with Greenville fielding the opening kickoff, he began the game on the bench. He was a defensive back, all right? Before the offense had run a play, Jeremiah turned around to the bleachers facing his mother. Mom, can you get me a Gatorade? Yeah, son. At the concession stand, nobody was in line. Williams bought Jeremiah his drink and for herself some nachos. She had no idea what was happening on the field. Then Greenville coach Sherrod Gideon remembers the play clearly. He goes, quote, "It sticks with me every day. I go back and watch the video and look at it and wonder what could have happened on that play to have a different outcome." Greenville threw an interception on the first play of the game. Jeremiah entered the field from the sidelines now. Not like during that play, all right, to go in on defense, all right? On what Gideon recalls as the next play, a Madison Central player broke loose on a run after Greenville's defense overcommitted to the inside. Jeremiah freed himself from blockers as the ball carrier was about to score. At the same time that Jeremiah went in for the hit, the player, who was taller, lowered his shoulder, and the top of Jeremiah's head collided with the player's body. So this is becoming a horror show, like, really quickly now. Trigger warning, I guess. All right. When LaShawna Williams returned from the concussion stand. All right, sorry, concession stand. The stadium had fallen quiet. I could see a player down on the field, she says. I knew that it couldn't be him because he was just on the sideline. And I come up and the cheerleaders turn around. They looking. Now my heart is beating. I'm looking for a 1. Number 1, his number. It's like everybody's looking at me now. He just laid on the ground. No movement, no nothing. I called his name, shaking him, nothing. Jeremiah Williams was airlifted from the stadium to a hospital in Jackson. Suffering from fractured vertebrae, a ventilator kept him alive for 7 days. He never regained consciousness, and his brain never showed any signs of activity. He was the 3rd player to die during a high school football game in Mississippi in the fall of 2018. All right, so we're not even getting into. Goes on to William Anderson from Houston High School. There, deep south they pronounce that Houston. 15-year-old offensive lineman. All right, so then we had, and then it goes on to Dennis Mitchell, also passed away that year. So I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's tough to wrestle with this stuff. You can put your head in the sand sometimes, but the reality is that people just need you have to know the full facts of things, and then whatever you're comfortable with. I mean, I've always kind of found ways to rationalize things, and just thinking of like all the terrible things, all the ways people die of just terrible accidents and whatnot. But this is not like some accident. I mean, it's like we know what the game can do, and yet what does it say about us that as a society, as just people in general? I mean, because it's not like the U.S. is unique in having violent sport. I mean, combat sports exist around the world, but they're also living under a system of, you're living under imperialist rule, and it's a manifestation of, I think all the MMA fighters you see coming out of oppressed nationalities, it's like, again, a manifestation of like fighting, scratching, clawing to get yourself out of the situation. I always think of it as Modelo commercials, and those are like the absolute manifestation of like the grit, grind yourself, bootstrapping mentality, brought to life really in commercial form. And we see them all the time. It's like someone fought and scratched their way to the, up the ladder from nothing, came up from Guatemala. They're not saying like, the guy crossed the border, probably the implication is he crossed the border illegally, right? But then found some way to, or, maybe he did it the right way, right? But they became a chef, right? It was a busboy and worked and it's like, those narratives serve a purpose, man. That's powerful ideological, fodder for the ruling class serves people on the regular in this country, right? And I think that more people need to wrestle with that, and not just, we can endlessly talk about what a sellout AOC is, what a fraud, and she is. I mean, this latest thing with voting present and that whole tier display, I wasn't even going to get into that, but I got to ask you, Justin. I mean, it's just, I don't even have words for it anymore. I really don't even understand what that was about. Like, what was she crying about, by the way? But my point isn't my point isn't bringing this up. It's just like, we know, like, these people that act all mad and then just like, let's get all upset. It's like, what do you expect for like, you really think electoral politics, like, they're going to go in there and like the powers that be in this country are going to allow a few people like in the not the people's house, all this BS about Jan 6, like attack on the people's house, as if like that's the reason they're mad about it, is bullshit. But the notion that like we got to just spend so much time debating one way or the other about whether she's being strategic or whether they're being strategic or not, like, we got to look at the culture, we got to look at the get to the grassroots of what people are struggling with. And most working class people aren't sitting around talking about the squad, man, despite what leftist Twitter seems like. I mean, we got to recognize that, like, the world of, like, pedantic debating, about, I mean, I like stuff, but yeah, we are back at it, Neil. Thanks for hopping on, man. This world of endless, like, leftist Twitter debates about, like, AOC, the squad, and like this, all this kind of stuff is just not stuff working people give a shit about, like, so I don't know.
But it does occupy the space and keeps people from direct action, keeps people from organization, the shit that works.
Yeah, because it helps fulfill, for a lot of people, it's like, look, the forces are overwhelming, we can't really do anything, so I'm at least just gonna like just spin here and just like come up with like tweets that are like really going hard in critiques of everything. I'm not gonna do anything, which, like, they need to be critiqued, so I'm coming at this from multiple angles, like fuck them, basically, like, but just I don't want to give electoral politics all my energy, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So Justin, go ahead, what's your reaction? But I must say, I'm curious about what was she crying about, man? What was that about?
Like, was that supposed to be like her, like, was that the performative thing, like just like going and crying at like at the detention camps, like outside of the fence? Like, was that like, is this her like performative way of being like, Nancy Pelosi whispered something to me, I had to vote this way, and now I'm like really sad about it. Like, I'm really broken up. This is my apology. Like, look what I did, and look at the toll it took on me. Cool. That toll doesn't change what you did. Like, what you did is but like, isn't that like American electoral politics, like, in a nutshell, though, is like, it's the optics of it. It's never like look at Biden's UN speech. Like, everything he said was either completely untrue or lip service, every policy goes against it, and people just can't stop talking about the speech.
No,
so
but-
we
but
only
Justin-
care about optics.
Justin, but he said we're turning a new page.
Yeah.
Like, you know, where
He also
like,
said we're not at war with anyone.
we're not at war with anyone. We're just out
Anyone.
here. We're just dropping peace bombs everywhere, man. Like, you know,
Yeah.
and USAID freaking like, you know, care packages in the forms of, you know, it's amazing. You heard about USAID dropping a bunch of vaccines off in like occupied Palestine, and like Palestinians, surprise, surprise, a lot of them aren't taking them because why in the world were they going to trust anything coming from USAID, right? And now, of course, that's allowing the Israeli society jackasses to now say, oh, well, now after just months and months and months of vaccine apartheid, you know,
two
now,
things.
yeah, go ahead, man. Yeah.
What I was going to say, like two things, like it was crazy to me that like that the French pulling their ambassador like didn't get more press. Like, I mean, it's also ridiculous that like another like colonial empire in France literally heard Biden's speech and was like, oh, no, like no, you're lying, and like pulled an ambassador. Like, I know it's completely performative as well, but like also to see that just buried, like watch CNN like headline news for 1 hour and they won't talk about how like the French are like literally like Joe Biden just lied to a bunch of people about what's going on. You guys also like are turning Australia apparently into like a colony now, like with this whole weapons deal you have, and pulled an ambassador, and it's just like disappeared. Like it's crazy to me, like that story has not gotten more. And honestly, like, sorry, I forgot what the second point was. What were we talking about?
I mean, we're talking about AOC.
What's the second one? Yeah.
Oh, the AOC, and we're talking about this Iron Dome, and I still cannot get my mind around like what was she crying about? Like, I guess you're right. I guess like,
man, it's performative.
But I still don't even understand. Like she's literally crying to make the point that I didn't really want to vote president, but like Nancy made me. And somehow in her mind, she thinks that like people are gonna like sympathize
people give her
with
a free
that.
pass on it. Yeah, they'll be like, look at how bad she felt about the horrible act she just did.
I mean, but like she could have voted no, and it would have still passed overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
But I mean, of course, it's like for her though, it's like, you know, I mean, it's about like it always has been. It's just about like, you know, career advancement, and like that's how it is for most people. So I'm not like singling her out. I mean, it's like I know a lot of people that are like that. I mean, I think most people are like that, but she wasn't portrayed as that. There's a reason that most people, like the people I'm talking about that I know that are like that, aren't like being followed by, you know, young kids all over the country that are inspired, that like students I've had when she was first coming out that were, you know, just talking or writing journal entries about how just emotional, like and powerful it is to see like this young woman who is really like representing like, you know, and bringing like sort of the language of socialism to, you know, a whole masses of people that have never really been exposed to it in like in a serious way, as opposed other than just, you know, Marx was this guy who wrote stuff that sounds good in theory, but it just doesn't work in like reality, you know, in the real world, right? That's sort of like the typical American mainstream middle class view, right? That like, you know, if you get someone, if they're not just like a hardcore anti-communist, if they're a little more enlightened, you know, like within the American mainstream, as far as you could go and say, well, I mean, in theory, the ideas are great, but we just know the horrors of what happens when you try to like implement socialism in reality, right? So it's like, you know,
the Americans will come and kill you.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like the people that love like that like Winston Churchill quote. That's like, I don't even know if it's real, but like it's like, you know, if you weren't like a bleeding heart liberal as a youth, then like you had no heart, right? And if you weren't the conservative once you grew up, then you had no brain. And they'll say that as if they're being profound. Like, I mean, I can't tell you how many like dumbasses I've like come across that like think they're like, I'm like, oh my God, they're actually quoting this shit again. They actually like think like, oh, I heard this, and I'm actually gonna drop this in like conversation to like show people how, you know, how smart I am. You know how, you know, Winston Churchill said this, right? You know, like There you go, Neil.
Yeah.
Fuck France, man. Like, you know, and like, yeah, we do need to bring back freedom fries, man. You know, just kidding. But like,
the second thing I was going to say, I did remember it about when you were saying USA AID.
Let's go back to that before our channel gets
like,
shut off because we mentioned the word vaccine, so we can't. You know.
Yeah. So real quick, it's like when when the CIA was still looking for bin Laden, and they ran that fake polio vaccine drive in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Where, like, first of all, you replaced Doctors Without Borders. Like, you had fake Doctors Without Borders that were all CIA giving people placebos. Like, the one thing you could have done in that instance was to, I don't know, actually give polio vaccines, but they didn't.
Yeah, but how would they have studied the other control group, right? You know, like
yeah. So they used placebos. They got found out. You create two things happens. One, now you have people attacking actual Doctors Without Borders, which happened for like 2 years after that, and just slaughtering doctors because now they just think that everyone's CIA. And two, you've created this fear that what if it comes from the US, it's fake. If it comes from the US, it's not like done in any kind of like earnest way. Like, they've done this so much to themselves. I mean, if they're going to drop vaccines in Palestine and it's coming from USAID, like, come on. I think a lot of people know what USAID does, like, and who they like, where they get their funding. So it's one of those things where like, and like, I actually think that they were, in this case, actually dropping vaccines mainly for optics. I think it really has to do with optics,
right?
Like looking like we're a caring organization. But you're going to have people who aren't going to do it because who would trust us? And who would trust us?
But here's what happened, I think. And like, I don't need proof, but this is like, there's not going to they wouldn't let you have any proof regardless because they would make sure that.
Yeah.
But this is what I think the deal is. I think that, like, the Israel lobby, we just saw what happened with Iron Dome. They like run this country, at least in terms of foreign policy and stuff. So it's like, I think they knew because of the sordid history of USAID, they know that like, to the people in occupied Palestine, there is no difference between the U.S. and Israel. They are the same entity, right? So it's like they know that because you drop all this stuff in, with USAID boxes, people aren't going to trust it. So then we can anticipate that. So then we can also anticipate an opportunity to say, look at these dumb, backwards, like primitive dumbasses,
they didn't take
right?
the vaccine.
Who don't take it, juxtaposed with us enlightened Israelis that are like so pro-science, right? That like we're like
so pro-science, they'll kill scientists,
right?
Sorry,
we're all us in Israel, we're all super vax in Israel compared with these primitive like just monsters over there who just don't even take what's good for them when it's given to them. Of course, with no context, we're like, well, like, why would they not trust USAID? It's like, it's aid. Like, the Republicans, like, right wingers say, we got to cut foreign aid, right? Foreign aid. Why are we helping all these people? Like, what are they talking about? The foreign aid they're talking about would be better off if like they didn't send. They're like sending money to train like military officials of like, right-wing juntas around the world and acting as if like foreign aid, we're just like giving out money to like poor people. No, that foreign aid is like, that's just blows my mind. You drive through like you drive through South Georgia, man, and you'll see signs. It's like, stop the globalists, get us out of the UN, blah, 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 these farms and shit. And it's like, in their minds, they actually think that like Chuck Schumer and like Ben Cardin and like Steny Hoyer and Rahm Emanuel and like Hillary Clinton just like are like actual communists who like want to create a globalist world order where they like go around just giving away hardworking like South Georgia farmer money to like poor minorities around the world who are part of a scam, a process of replacing us Anglo-Saxons, like
taking our jobs,
right, and like giving our money to the globalist United Nations, and by doing that, listen, Justin, I mean, listen up, I'm on a roll now, right? So they're taking our money and like the communists of the Hillary Clinton Democratic Party with Rahm Emanuel and like their Marxist agenda, right, are trying to to replace us all, right? And doing so with like, this policy they got of, like I said, taking our money and giving foreign aid to everybody, like gifts, because they want to make these other countries rich and make us poor, and they're trying to help out the poor, like Palestinians, but of course all the other money going to like Colombia and like Panama. It's like, they're just trying to help out the people that ain't white because they hate white people, except themselves. No, they're giving money to rich ass Colombians to go beat the crap out of and kill working class Colombians, you dipshits. And it's like, our media is so fucked, and MSNBC makes it so easy on those kind of people to have those views, because it's like you watch that crap and it's such garbage that it really creates the dynamics for like those kind of ridiculous theories can start to propagate. So anyway,
and they'll never talk about the like the reverse side of that extraction. They'll talk about aid all day long, but they'll never throw out the stat that for every dollar of aid the West gives, it extracts 23 from the global South.
Right. Oh, of course. That's not even like,
so
because those people don't see that. Those people don't see that money, right? They don't see that coming in, right? In like South Georgia. So it's like in their minds, there's all this money. Dude, your taxpayer money is not that important to them. Like, I hate to say it, man. Like, they're going to charge you it. You're going to have to pay. Yeah. But that's not where they're funding this shit from.
And the taxpayer money, like that, and that whole idea, especially when it comes to the MIC, like for sure, like when it comes to this kind of money, like with Afghanistan, trying to explain this to a lot of people, when you're like, look, it was a transfer of wealth because all of that tax dollars that we spent, that went to so many different private contractors, that went to that portion of that. And then when people are like, okay, so you spent all of this money that was ours, and it actually like funneled some of it over here, but it's actually less, because they don't understand that they will literally spend $10 of our money to make $1 of their own. And that's the point. But trying to explain that to people in the same way that they don't understand aid versus extraction, right? Like they don't, like it just, they will literally look at it and go, what you're describing with funneling all this money to the MIC doesn't make sense. It's a bad investment. It's a great investment if you're the MIC, because it didn't cost them anything. It was our money. Like, it's just, like trying to like get them to understand that part of it too, right? Is really tough. Like, because they will, like, if I can get $10 from you and turn it into an extra $1 from me, cool, man. I made 11, you're out 10. Like
there you go. Absolutely. So on that note, I really want to get into a little bit about like the post 9/11 culture. So like I did a stream on Rockfin last week with Max Blumenthal and his show Foreign Agents, and we kind of regretted not like really getting into this more. So I'm actually he and Anya Parampil are up in New York with UN General Assembly stuff that's going on now, meeting with the Cuban delegation, and and so we're still planning this out right now, but doing reacting to stuff like Daryl Worley's "Have You Forgotten?" A lot of people know about the Toby Keith stuff. We're like put a boot in your ass and all that, but it's like that stuff not only is like the cheapest propaganda for the ruling class that like enabled them to like just easily sell the Iraq war without even really having to do any heavy lifting. I mean, that's the thing. It's like the bloodthirsty like desire to just kill Muslims on that behalf of like mainstream America made it so easy for Cheney to just like sell this absurd fiction that like somehow Saddam Hussein is like in cahoots with like Osama bin Laden. I mean, these
two dudes that would have like killed each other immediately had they run into each other.
Absolutely. I mean, like as soon as possible, man. So real quick, like just to bring people back to that moment, you really got to go back to 2001 World Series, George W. Bush throwing out the first pitch at Yankee Stadium. Lee Greenwood, who, this is hilarious. I'm not going to put this up on the screen. I've done a lot, but like where there's like they're like alleging cancel culture now, like Outkick and Clay Travis are now their new big thing is like, ooh, the left cancel culture of Joe Biden, because like the left and Joe Biden, that's just like really what I think about when I think the left. But in the world of dipshit Clay Travis, like, and this just buffoon who thinks he's so smart because he he really does. I mean, he thinks he's, he reads a few little books and he's with George Washington, and he's in his mind, it's everything's just like a rational debate. There's the Republicans and Democrats, and but now the left's gone crazy, meaning the Democrats, and a materialist analysis he's just totally incapable of. It's to him, it's just not the left just means annoying identity politics, rad libs basically, that are screaming about shut it down. If we don't get it, shut it down. And it's that is the left, not the masses of working and oppressed people. It's annoying, grad students who are just
low information liberals, liberals.
Yeah. And I don't mean to castigate all grad students. There's some really good ones, but there are, there's, annoying people in every realm. And it's in that there's some easy targets, put it that way. So, going back to that moment, you got to think about what that did ideologically. The nexus of sport, country music, our culture at large, and the ability to then go from Afghanistan to quickly pivoting to the sales job on Iraq. And there is no small connection between this whole spectacle that happened in the weeks after 9/11 and the just numbing of people's minds that enabled the Iraq War and its spectacular just levels of I don't even know where to say it. Just it's a most imbecile thing. It's something that's it's just tragic at the end of the day.
Yeah, and it was such a leap. It was such a leap from Desert Storm too, because we've talked about that. When I was young, that was the first war I saw, and the bloodlust was so easy. So it's almost got easier, but there was more culture with it this time.
Yeah.
Desert Storm was just the first time you saw a missile from the missile's point of view. You know what I mean? All those night vision, clips of a bomb going down an air vent.
Yeah,
things that.
The thing to give Brian Williams boners, right?
Yeah, like that sort of thing. But this was so much more entwined with culture because they came from multiple angles.
Right. So this World Series here involves the Arizona Diamondbacks and the New York Yankees, and just look at the Andy Pettitte, look at Derek Jeter.
Yeah.
Look at
before you press play really quick, just remember Lee Greenwood's wearing driving gloves and he's nowhere near a car. So
and he's sense. Also, he looks like he's got he's a truck driver and he's got a few women tied up in the back of his cab and comes out and he's just going to buy some supplies and stuff and putting on the little poses of oh yeah, let me go grab a few things, smiling down BS in his way so no one's suspicious, so he can get back there and get back to his dude, a guy that is just an ultimate mercenary for Empire here. Lee Greenwood. Let's see. So anyways, let's go ahead and just let it start, and then we'll react here. And I really want to hear what y'all think in the chat too, because we're going to take this and then skip forward 20 years after this, after we watch this one, and I think you'll see why.
Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention now to the microphone behind home plate. And please welcome one of America's premier entertainers, Grammy Award winner, Lee Greenwood.
Yeah.
Those gloves.
Yeah.
If tomorrow all the things were gone, work for all my life, and I had to start again, just my children and my wife. Thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, who at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Peace.
And I won't forget the men who died, who gave their right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. But there ain't no doubt I love this land.
You love this land. Look at my murder gloves. Yeah, man.
I just want to go ahead and say that, like, there's nothing in that song that's factually accurate other than that there's lakes in Minnesota and that he named a bunch of cities. But, like, other than that, like, I don't know if any of that.
New York to LA.
Like, and also, like, I love Lee Greenwood's going to stand up and defend. Like, that's just not like a recruiting ploy. Like, dude, no, you're not. No, you're not. You didn't. Where's your rifle?
He's doing it right there with his gloves. All right.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Relax. All right.
Exactly.
Chill. Now let's transition to 20 years from now. This just dropped a few days, like a week after 9/11. All right. It's like, or September 12th. So a little bit. Yeah. Day after 9/11. What am I talking about? And so I was in DC last weekend, and it kind of came to me. I started realizing that it's like this new genre of like country music with like mixed with hip hop. It's like they're trying to like kind of pick up on the whole like Lil Nas X, like, where he left off with that music video and stuff, but mixing it in with like QAnon and the struggle and like the storm is coming, but like we got to get these child molesters out, and this is where like that like what was given birth to after 9/11 is now like that whole just disgusting sort of like grotesque like Frankenstein monster of a shitty ass genre has mutated into. All right, these are mutants now that you're about to see. This is check this out, the great step. I mean, the step grandson of Waylon Jennings coming up. So behold, Struggle Jennings and his partner here, and just tell me what you think, like what's happened the last 20 years. Reflect on this and what it says about the state of the U.S. empire and the kind of angst that like right-wingers feel and, a big section of this country kind of feels, because these are songs that like a lot of people like kind of watch. And not just this one, but there's others too. This has just been out, not very long. So I'll pull this
and I had
up
no
here.
idea that Nate introduced me to this. I had no idea that like QAnon country hip hop existed. Mind blowing. Anyway, yeah, everyone should really
enjoy.
The world getting crazy, baby. Chill. Don't medicate, just meditate. Waking up now, baby, you hella late. Educate, look at what's going on, let it resonate, accelerate. Find your inner hunger like you never ate. Agenda is to push the hate. Separate and segregate, don't celebrate quite yet. The storm is coming, cue for heaven's sake. Violence, they demonstrate. instigate and penetrate the values of our country. And our God is what they desecrate. Fighters ain't no featherweight. Pulling out the seams of the fabric that they fabricate. They feed us lies, manipulate, intimidate through fear and force, forcing us to sit and wait till we come together, congregate, and then we liberate. Praying that you give me strength to find some love amongst the hate. Marching on the streets of blood till I see the golden gates. Troubadour, troubled souls, one of God's servants. Blades out, cut the grass till we see the serpents.
Oh, one day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show it stays on because of you, fool.
What is this?
Air piano, man. There's no piano even playing.
The devil way too long.
The devil and that DC.
I know it's fun,
and that
but
DC.
Get ready to pay your dues.
And that DC pizza establishment.
Oh,
Yo,
God,
check out the basement.
Come back home.
Whoa.
This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers.
Whoa.
We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.
I know the truth is hard to swallow, just digest it. Suspected something's going on, chosen just neglected, deflected by some breaking news. Oh, we just accept it, expected just to fall in line and follow their perspective. Don't question their objectives, but I got a lot of questions. How these kids molested, but nobody's been arrested. Read it in the testament, these children are protected. So I'm fighting all these terrorists, both foreign and domestic. Refuse to be directed.
He punches anyone with that much turquoise on.
Only kneel to my God, so I'm dying on my feet. Silence when we speak, but there's violence in the street. I've been rolling with the punches. I can't take it on the cheap. Nah, drink from a glass half full. I'm optimistic. People are sadistic, so vicious and malicious. Praying for assistance to overcome opposition, or I'm gonna start resisting, and then I pray for forgiveness.
Oh, one day I hope you see the truth.
What was that? I gotta pause. I gotta take a break here real quick. A little respite. Like, one day I hope you see the truth. Yeah, and I love what the serious look on his face. Like, yo, man, we got a big hit. We hit it on this one, bro. Yeah, hell yeah, man. You know, I'm hanging with my boys. Yo, people coming at the police nowadays. What happened to respect? You know, people going crazy, disrespecting our military. Yeah. Oh man, I really rhymed on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's unbelievable, and I don't know. Like, I don't know why his whole jewelry aesthetic is that of like a 70-year-old white woman from Albuquerque.
Yeah.
Like Etsy store. Like.
Yeah. Let's get through the rest of this real quick, man.
This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil.
Piano, dude. There's only a guitar. There's only a guitar.
Yeah. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh, God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. Need you now before we're
sexual abusers, baby. Q told us what's up. Q told us.
One day they finally see the truth.
Yo, Q sees the
God,
truth, baby.
We need you now.
God, we need you because the storm is coming. Q told us.
We need you now. We need you now. One day.
These people are gonna be like swept up like in the worst fiery rapture, like that you could ever imagine. Like,
yeah.
Holy crap, man! I gotta. I'll stop it there. But Holy crap, man.
I mean, this was the inevitable, direction it's going to go, man. Like, it's just gonna, like, it's like Lee Greenwood was the low bar and it's only going to drop lower. Like, that's the whole point. Like, that's just like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's just the way it works. Oh.
Yeah, let's see. Like, she's got this one. Therapy. What was the other one we heard? I gotta pull this up. Like, it was yeah, struggles that one other, man. It's like you gotta see. You got this one. This was the other one we want. Here it is. Yeah, with Adam Calhoun, man.
Will you come?
All right, yeah. Like, I gotta get your take on this one, man. This one's classic.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the production value.
And we're gonna tap out after this one. We'll talk about it maybe a couple minutes, then we're gonna peace out and then look forward to the next show. I think we should get another live show in maybe in a week or two. So we'll make an announcement on that.
Yep.
Here we go. Check
absolutely.
this out. Yep.
Fight for those who can't. Will you fold and walk away, or will you stay and take a stand? Don't be silenced by the lights where you can choose to understand. Oh, we've come to find.
Look at that waterfall. She is so bad.
And scarred. Hate the cops, break the law, and the news tries to say what's right and wrong. If you believe that, it's safe to say you probably gone. And I don't wear a mask, why don't you make me put one on? These days, morals and values take a back seat. Underage girls getting paid to shake their ass cheeks. If that was my daughter,
I don't wear a mask. You can make me put one on. Girls getting paid to shake their ass cheeks. Yeah, man. Look, gotta love our culture, Jagoff, right? Gotta love our culture.
Back it up just a tiny bit because people need to hear this line that he's about to say, but they need to hear it in context because he's about to advocate like serious child abuse.
Yeah. It gets crazier after this too.
And I don't wear a mask, why don't you make me put one on? These days, morals and values take a back seat. Underage girls getting paid to shake their ass cheeks. If that was my daughter, you bet she get her ass beat. And I was born tough, so I don't need this vaccine. They try to make us feel like we stand alone. Why you think we?
He was born tough. That's why I don't need this vaccine, right? Said Adam Calhoun.
Keep guns and ammo on standby in our home. Common sense ain't so common. Go on social media, read the comments. I'ma vomit with this nonsense.
We fight for those who can't. You fight for those who can't is purely, that is like straight up QAnon, like, like red meat, man. Will you fight this idea that like we're the strong ones, so it's our duty to fight for the innocent against the satanic cult that's trying to like, and they're like earnest about it. That's what's wild.
Yeah.
Like, they are like dead earnest. Like, they see themselves as like just like emotional, like we're putting heart and soul into this like absolute insanity, man. Yeah, Jagoff, man, I feel you, bro. I mean,
I want to see their shot list for this too, because they're going to be like, all right, like iPhone 12 Pro, and then like the collapsed barn.
Yeah.
And then we got like the railroad bridge.
Dude,
my cousin's got a drone, and we'll put her by the waterfall.
Hell yeah, man, it'll be dope. It's like this is like just on the outskirts of Nashville, still metropolitan statistical area, but like almost not,
You say and take a stand. Don't be silenced by the lights where you can choose to understand. Oh, we've come to
I don't do good with being told that I have to do anything but really everything that really happened to. Morals and the standards we were taught about. I ought to shout from the highest mountain what I thought about everything that's going on. Children
waterfall.
upon the right
Children
space. Reading what they say in songs. I sang a song. God, we need you now. Has that political things we show our kids right now is also critical. It's pitiful. Pinning us against each other. Guess that is their pinnacle. Tip of the iceberg, sinking ships with their ridicule. Ridiculous, they're infamous for stripping us of innocence, but making innocent victims depend on stimulus.
Making innocent victims depend on stimulus. They stripped us of our innocence. Like they're talking about America. So we're such we're good intentioned American people. We're good and we're something that we want to save the world. Like Jagoff said, this is white man's burden on steroids. It's like, but we're being hijacked by this cabal of Hillary Clinton, satanic, child blood drinking, pizza store going.
And that thing that's gonna steal your innocence is the stimulus. You know, like that $2,000 total people got over a year and a half.
Yeah. Like what exceptional ruling class propaganda that's just wrapped up in just this like aesthetic of like, you know, lower middle class, like anger at like, you know, the rich elites, you know. It's like insane.
For those who can't, will you fold?
It's like these are cultivated in some like DNC lab, you know, to like help like, you know, show like here, look America, like freak out liberals, but then also like stir this mass hysteria because they actually want the right going in this direction because then they can just like never have to like make any like, you know, really govern. They can just sit there and make fun of like QAnon dipshits and
it makes their slow slide right, which where they want to go anyway. Like,
right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It's almost done here.
Walk away, or will you stay and take a stand?
Why are they just walking? Like, why?
Look at him. Look at him about to walk. They're about to walk out together and like be like real serious. Like, hell yeah, man. Hell yeah, bro.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Unfucking believable.
Yeah, man. All right, so let's have welcome, Jeffrey. Like, how's everything in Nebraska? We got to get your take on the Huskers now that you showed up. You know, we're getting ready. Justin's got to go in 6 minutes on the dot. I mean, I got to not be far behind. So I don't know. I'd love to hear y'all's take in the chat. Like, I mean, Jeffrey, I'm glad you hopped in. Also, like, you know, what's gonna happen with the Huskers up in East Lansing this weekend? You know, well, I do not foresee, if I'm rubbing my crystal ball, anything good for Big Red. All right, so I'll just say that and I'll leave it there. But Justin, back to this.
Nate, hover over that second video, the second one, just the second one. Like, I'm just curious the one, that one. Oh, right. Okay. Right that here? Like from a side profile? No. The one up and to the right. Yeah, from a side profile. This dude with the headphones on. Oh, go ahead.
What is this? The Patriot? I haven't even seen this yet, man. I gotta at least like see this. Oh my God!
Two veterans.
I'm not joking. I have not seen this yet. This just came up. This is insane. On Jan 6th, The Patriot. Oh my gosh. Oh, free the Patriot. Yeah. Look at you. Oh my gosh. What?
Tens of thousands on my right, thousands by my side. War between good and evil, watching our fists collide. Battle for our freedom now, to the streets we ride. Flags waving all around, pages full of pride.
I've seen that guy. That guy
no more take. March around the Capitol, storm the city gates. Putting pressure on their necks until the truth breaks. All walls of corruption, take out all the snakes. Star Spangled Banner, got it playing loud and proud. People from all walks of life filling up the crowd. Defend the Constitution, many warriors avowed. Casting down any among us who have bucked and cowed. Enough with tyranny, we come to take our country back. For all citizens, white, red, brown, or black. Return her to a form of glory, fix their bloody crack on the crown. Fetch it down.
This came out in January I mean, I can't believe I haven't seen this before. Let me hit the down button real quick. What?
He just said save the country for everyone, and then he included, I like how he threw red in there. Because you know what indigenous people want? They want the America that was originally envisioned when it was stolen from them to be restored.
Right, and I love how when you watch this, what comes up, Marcus Luttrell 911 call.
Yeah.
It's like that. This is the milieu we're talking about here. The people that like think of Marcus Luttrell and are like, oh man, hell yeah. That guy, he's a hero.
Yeah.
The same people that were like, literally when like Abby Martin, my friend, lived up in New York, and I remember like she was like had to get like actual like law enforcement protection because of like this cabal, that guy, and what's the other dipshit man in Texas? I'm forgetting his name right now. The American shooter guy.
Kyle, Chris
Kyle, yeah. The Marcus.
Because she had that fuck Chris Kyle shirt.
Yeah. That was it. So it was Chris Kyle, but like but the Marcus Luttrell guys like straight up with them. They're like they were in bed with each other basically, and like they were like, we're gonna go up and like chop up your like vagina and all this stuff and like cut you up into pieces. I mean that is the level of depravity and violence that like comes out of this world, and and it sucks because then you have to depend. Like she had to actually depend on like. U.S. like federal law enforcement people like for like actual like being outside the house for a while because there were credible threats like of like that they were gonna like find knew where she lived in Brooklyn and we're gonna storm in there at night. So and you can't just like go and hire your own vigilante stuff in this country. They'll come really get you for that. So it's just insane the kind of like situations you get put in, and then this is just wild because this has got like almost close to 2.8 million views. It's not like a mass movement, but it's like enough of a thing that's being nurtured within our culture that it absolutely needs to be wrestled with, man. Like, not in the way that the Democrats and the MSNBC people want you to think about it, where it's like, just look at this and just like laugh at what a freak show. I mean, it is that, but this stuff is coming out. What the dynamic we have in electoral politics of just gridlock and the Democratic Party just virtue signaling about how crazy the right is, which they are, but they're using that as a means to justify why they don't do anything and why they can't get anything done. And so it's the perfect like villain for them, right? You're able to push the identity politics narratives, like just whine and complain about how like terrible all this stuff is, and do nothing. Right.
And their base isn't any better because their base like fucking falls for the optics too. Like the Haitian border shit, right? What was their response? The White House came out and said, we're immediately ceasing using horses. Like it was the horses' fault. Like that's what it was. No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Like
man.
They get to do that kind of shit because people fall for it. You know what I mean? Like literally low information liberals, man. Like they will just be like, yeah, we solved that. Now that's done. Because we took away the horses because the horses were the problem.
Well, that was
going to do this. Yeah, they're going to do this from ATVs, drones, trucks, and on foot.
But for liberals and in Chelsea, Manhattan, or wherever that are like sitting there watching MSNBC or listening to Ezra Klein's podcast or like listening to fucking dipshit Ari Melber on MSNBC. On like Rick Ross promoting like how to be a boss like on his book, but like even worse than that, that's not even like whatever. It's like not really hurting anything in the grand scheme of things. But what it is him having a limo cruising around Manhattan with quote unquote woke Bill Kristol and Fat Joe being like literally like trafficking and giving cover to an absolute war criminal and allowing him to like rebuild and recraft an image, a dude who has been wrong about literally everything. All you do is fail up. And like, so if you're like on the side of the MIC, of the MIC, and on the establishment, and you're anti-Trump, you can be wrong about everything. And because it's like whatever you're wrong about, it's just like it hasn't happened yet, right? And it's like you just talk about how like these different things that's like have happened, and it's not really, but this stuff is still in the works. We just have to keep at it. Iraq is enough. It's only a failure because we lost the resolve, right? We need to go in there and like have a more steely resolve. And like we were just, it's like taking the whole like post World War I, like, Munich, like beer hall putsch type mentality of like stabbed in the back. Right. And, but sanitizing it and dressing it up that like, we just didn't give our generals what they needed. Right. And it's like, we got to like just recognize that in order to complete our civilizing mission, it's going to like help us bring democracy, freedom, and drop it all over everywhere around the world in nice care packages. We have to have more of a resolve. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go and like use dipshits like Ari Melber, who used to like at the Nation and now just has this show where he's like dropping hip hop lyrics all the time, like I'm Ari Melber. I'm gonna quote all this Biggie Small lyrics and like make like wonky rhymes and like check me out. I got Bill Crystal, rolling up here, dropping me a dime, and it's like Fat Joe. He ain't no hoe. He's my homie, yo. Like, it's like, shut the fuck up, man. Like,
Moon June Spoon.
Yeah, I got an MSNBC show, yo. This ain't no joke. We going hard in the paint, like Waka. Never mind, I'll stop it. But that's like, he does this, man. He tweets out rap lyrics now. Dude on MSNBC, resistance libs and shit that are now like helping the traffic and like resuscitating the Bill Crystals of the world, right? Yep. That's the world we live in, and those are the people that like love this stuff. They hate it, but they love being able to like have it out there in the ether, man.
Yep.
And
they can point at it,
and it penetrates into sport a lot, man. It absolutely does. And it will continue to, and we got to keep our pulse, our fingers on that, and like kind of see how this all evolves. Because there is a Facebook and an Insta, man. I actually like made a quick post with Struggle Jennings' picture on it before we started on the Insta. I kind of let that alone for a while, but yeah, man, we need to get more. I did make a Facebook, well, not on the Redspin page, but yeah, I need to do that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Jeffrey.
We will do that. We will do that more. We will be better with that.
I don't know, Jeffrey. Maybe we can like put you in charge of like our Instagram game or something. Anyways, man.
All right. I'm gonna have to bail, but I want to say I do want to throw something out there, and that is in the wake of a non-sport story that has captured the attention of your average American. I want to throw out the MMIW movement. The MMIW movement is the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women movement. It has been around a long, long time because Indigenous women are go missing and are murdered at a rate that is like 21 times that of anyone else on this planet. Over 700 in Wyoming alone since 2001. The same state where this white girl went missing. It's just one of those things that, I think that, needs more attention. There's a lot you can do and share through the MMIW movement, the hashtag MMIW. But it's definitely just something to keep in mind as people are like glued to this story about like this one woman, and it's a fucking tragedy what happened to her too. Like, this is not to downplay that. It's to really put the focus on like what matters. You know what I mean? Like what matters to like your average American and what they'll pay attention to and what the news cycles will sell, right? Because you've had thousands upon thousands of these sorts of cases, and all people of color. But I just want to throw out there that the MMIW movement, it's definitely something to at least, take 5 minutes, learn a little bit about like what these numbers are, because they're fucking staggering at the rate at which this happens. And police will come and arrest an indigenous woman on a reservation and people just never see her again. And this kind of shit happens all the time. I mean, there is an element of this. Like if you think about what Black people went through with Reconstruction, with, especially the phase after the Civil War ended, right? Like, where we get the term honky even from, like all of this shit that was going on, like that's still existing in these communities to this day, where just the absolute sheer like confidence that you can go onto a reservation and kill an indigenous woman and no one will give a shit other than the people that you took her from. And yeah, I'm just saying it's definitely something, the numbers are absolutely staggering. And it's something that needs way more visibility than it ever gets.
I mean, sadly, it's like the reality is they know that they can do that, right?
Exactly. And the one thing that's going to change that is visibility. Like how else can we, unless it's pushed to that same level and that same narrative? So
facts. Yeah, absolutely, man. Well said, Justin. Let's close it out on that. We'll keep y'all posted. Nice comment there. I'm not too far from Pine Ridge, and this has been an issue in the wake of the white girl that went missing. Yeah, so yeah, appreciate you sharing that comment. And no worries, Jeffrey. We're gonna get back on with these. We do need to get we got to pick a date. I don't think with where we are right now, we can't pick a set day every week. We got to just do it but we got to pick one like 3 days in advance and then just really promote it at that time. But I don't want to set a date where I know we might have different stuff coming up and then we can't stay on it again. I think the best thing to do, we can all do, is just make sure we decide on when we'll do it, and then just like 2 or 3 days ahead of time and make sure we really push it out in that time span, right? Instead of like more like last minute. So that'll be the main thing we got to do. Then also more pre-recorded stuff. And then I got to get it. I actually am almost done going through the Nathan Common Lamb interview stuff, and the interview people probably don't believe actually exists anymore will be out here in the near future. All right.
100%.
On that note, we're out. Enjoy your weekend.
Later.